Go ahead, Caroline.
Hi there. How are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Well, here we are, piping hot.
I'm ready.
I know. Well, here we go. I guess I'll start off. I'm Caroline Rothwell Gerstein. I am a creative strategist, a brand builder. I specialize in scaling businesses through storytelling, innovation, and cultural connection. And I've worked across fashion, tech, and consumer brands and helping companies merge creativity with strategy to drive meaningful growth. That's a lot of language. Loree, let's hear about you. And I'm so happy to be here doing Piping Hot with you today.
I'm super excited. Loree Lash-Valencia. I'm a strategic growth and go-to-market executive. I'm going to just dive right in and tell you more about myself later.
Okay.
I'm excited to talk about the subject, creativity as an economic driver. And I'm going to put you on the hot seat first and ask you about, people often think creativity as artistic, but we both know that strategy itself is creative. Can you give me an example from your work where you think creative thinking was like game changing in a business scenario?
Well, I mean, creativity is the new power move, but I feel like, I'm going to go back to the very beginning because I feel like in our careers, we're finding things have come pretty full circle. But I would go back to the start with working with Tom's. I think it was a very unique case study in terms of creativity driving economics, where the creativity wasn't just the product, but it was the mission, the marketing, and it was the consumer experience. They weren't just buying shoes, they were part of a movement. And even their own personal creativity was a huge part of igniting that customer base where, they were doing custom designs and storytelling and social sharing and really became part of the brand. So I think, when a CEO has a vision, one thing that I always loved about working with Blake was that he was very clear that he wanted to put shoes on children's feet. And he even, took the company to 600 million and he was still the CEO / chief shoe giver. It takes a lot of creativity to work a strategy to make sure that you stay on track and, adhere to the vision you set out when you start a company. So, I think the key takeaway is that most enduring brands, they allow the consumers to express themselves through them, like through the brand. And that's really the magic of being a creative, being creative with your strategy. But, I guess I would pose it back to you. Have you seen brands tap into creative connection as a business advantage in your work? I know you work a lot in innovation.
Yeah, great question and great example. I mean, Tom's, God, when they came on the scene, they were the first for sure, right? Like they just blew that up. And then there've been so many followers since then. So that was a great example.
Thank you.
I guess another one that I think of is maybe Rent the Runway.
Yes.
When they came on the scene, like it was groundbreaking, right? So here they're addressing, whether you look at it from a social lens that, it's great for the environment, but they're taking something that they're like, why not share this? And boldly going after it. If you think about it, I don't even know if they ever made money, right? They're like, okay, I know this will work. Logistically, it's going to be a nightmare. And then we have to do dry cleaning and we have to get the brands on board and then we've got to get it to people. But the concept is fantastic, right? That why don't we share clothes, right? And so I think that's a good example. What do you think?
That's a great example. And it's like, I think you and we were talking, before we jumped onto Piping Hot, it was that we seem to be coming back full circle and, really looking at creative ways to reimagine our businesses in today's world. So I'm going to pose you a question. We both transitioned from single corporate roles to portfolio careers. Why do you think so many high-level professionals are making this shift and what's driving this change?
Oh my God. Don't get me started, but get me started because it's like probably my favorite subject. And I think we have 10, 15 minutes, so I won't go too deep, but I think there are a couple reasons. I think the main reason is, you can't rely on your job. You know, right now, I don't think you can rely on your job
Yeah.
to be secure. I think we see that every day, right? Like jobs get slashed. You could be doing a fantastic, you know, you could be performing, you can be doing a fantastic job. And then they'll be like, yeah, you know, we're going to cut. And like, there you are out
Yeah.
and your livelihood and you suffer. And I think this is affecting so many people today. I
Yeah.
think that there's a lot of suffering. So I think that's one aspect that I could keep going on. But then on the flip side, I think there's also, as you progress through your career, you do a lot of things, right? Like you're wearing a lot of hats. If you're paying attention, you're learning a lot.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think especially for really creative or brilliant, you know, people, and I know a lot of those, right? Like as we progress, we're getting bigger and people kind of want to put you in a box, right? So I know myself, I started my career as a designer. I segued into tech and revenue driving, so sales.
Yeah.
And as I've progressed, you know, and my favorite part of all of that is go to market and the white space
Oh
opportunity.
yeah, we
And,
talked about our love of the white
and
space.
the love of the white space, right? And finding opportunity and bringing that message, you know, across all touch points. And then I find people are like, oh, close that deal, close that deal, close that deal. Like they just see sales. So I think that as we progress, we're multi-textural. We want to do different things and expand. And that doesn't align with just like a single thing. So I think that, and the board is a fantastic example of that,
Yeah.
right? So I think when, you know, April's vision was like, why attack a problem with one single lens, like one single perspective, when you can bring in so many brilliant minds to solve that problem and look at it from different angles. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. And it's interesting because we talked about another question we wanted to kind of, raise, which is that myth of business versus creativity. And, this divide between business and creativity, I think it's like the perfect segue into that of just,
Mhm.
but in reality, the best leaders, they're often the most creative thinkers, I mean, the obvious, like a Steve Jobs, and it's interesting because the board is such a great place for all of us to come together. And it's this uncovering of, April calls it our superpowers, but, we needed to kind of remind ourselves that there's a lot of need for this sort of creative latitude and the ability to apply creativity in finance, in creative, in all these different areas of the business. It's not a dirty word, we were joking and talking about how artisanal used to be like a dirty word. And then, it became, part of the cultural zeitgeist of just bringing things back to DIY. So I agree with you. I feel like everything's changing all the time. But I love that question we were talking about, the myth of business versus creativity. And, would you want to maybe speak to that point, or we can
Yeah, I
move
think
back and forth on that one?
yeah, I think you're kind of nailing it. You know, it used to be church and state, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're a creative or you're business. But yeah, I remember an early creative director that I worked with, and he's like, business is the most creative art there is. And
Yeah.
I think that now more than ever, if you're not approaching your business, your life, with this kind of, how can I reimagine? How can I imagine this? How can we find the white space? How can we change it? Because there needs to be a new normal, and I don't think there is any safety or success in same old, same old.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious what you think too. Like I was, standing out in a saturated market seems to be a common issue with a lot of people that I've been working with. It's just, in a world of sameness, creativity is really the differentiator. And,
Mhm.
some of the most innovative leaders are reimagining, as you said, marketing, brand experiences, customer engagement through creative strategy. There's A24 out there reinventing Hollywood, making artistry its business model. You've got, Hermes just keeps coming back and back with its craftsmanship and exclusivity to scale its luxury positioning. It's, there's so many brands out there and businesses that are using creativity to differentiate themselves. Are you finding that same scenario in your work?
For sure. For sure. Like I think too, with the onslaught of AI leveling, so much, I'm just bubbling up so much sameness, like even in content on LinkedIn, everyone's just like, you know what? Be yourself, be authentic, think out of the box. But I think you and I can just go on and on, forever. Hopefully they'll have us back to keep going. But I think we need to like wrap it up. So I want to urge anyone that's watching to connect with us on LinkedIn. And, if you like this, come back next week for another episode of Piping Hot.
Thank you so much. And shout out to the board. Thank you for having us, and get in touch with us over here on LinkedIn. We look forward to connecting with you. Thank you, Loree, so much. I've really enjoyed this.
Same here.
Bye. Bye.